There's something I want to tell you, and maybe no one has said it to you clearly before. You are not broken, you're tired, and not just the kind of tired sleep can fix. You're tired because every single day you've been putting on a face that says, I'm okay. When inside, you're holding yourself together with quiet strength no one sees. And that kind of pretending, that takes courage. It takes energy. It drains your soul more than anyone realizes. But here's the truth that might surprise you. Even the Stoics, yes, those calm, unshakable philosophers of ancient times, they knew this. Epictetus, a man who was born into slavery and suffered more than most, once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." He didn't mean fake it, he meant live it. But how can you embody anything when you're barely staying afloat? That's why we're here. This isn't another page telling you to stay positive or just be strong. This is a quiet corner of the internet reminding you that feeling tired isn't failure, that silence doesn't mean weakness, and that healing isn't loud. It's slow, soft, and sacred. If this speaks to something deep in you, if your heart whispered yes, while your mind tried to stay strong, then stay with us. Subscribe, like. Support this small effort to remind each other. We're not alone. We're not broken. We're just real and learning to rest. Lesson 1. Don't speak ill of yourself. Even quietly. There's a voice inside you. Maybe you've heard it. It's not loud, but it's constant. It whispers things like, "You're not enough," or "Why can't you just get it together?" Sometimes it doesn't even use words, just a heavy feeling in your chest when you look in the mirror, or the quiet guilt that follows you through a day where you didn't do all the things you should have. That voice, it's not your truth. It's your exhaustion speaking. The weight of pretending for too long, of carrying invisible struggles without letting anyone know just how heavy they've become. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus taught that the way we speak, especially to ourselves, shapes our reality. He said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. Don't wish to seem knowledgeable." In other words, drop the performance. Stop beating yourself up for not being perfect. You're human, not a machine. And you don't have to be fine all the time to be worthy of grace. When we speak ill of ourselves, even in silence, we turn our mind into a battlefield. Every quiet insult becomes a cut. And over time, those cuts bleed into how we show up in the world, guarded, tired, disconnected, not because you're trying to manifest something, but because you deserve peace in the one place you live every second, your inner world. This isn't about ignoring your flaws. It's about not making them your identity. Lesson 2. Protect your pain. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your struggles. When you're quietly hurting, it can feel like you're carrying a secret too heavy for one soul. You crave release, a place to be seen, not fixed, just understood. But here's something hard-earned and quietly powerful. Not everyone deserves to know your battles. Your pain is sacred, your exhaustion, your quiet suffering. Those aren't just talking points to toss into casual conversations. And yet so many of us share our wounds too freely, hoping someone will hold them gently. Instead, we're often met with blank stares, hollow encouragements, or worse, judgment masked as advice. The Stoics understood this intimately. They lived in a world where showing emotion was seen as weakness, yet they never taught people to deny their feelings. Instead, they taught discernment. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And the people we share those thoughts with, they help shape that color too. So when you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, be careful who you open that door to. Your truth is not a burden, but it is vulnerable. And vulnerability, while beautiful, needs protection. It's not about isolation. It's about selection. You're not broken for wanting someone to understand. But if you've ever felt worse after opening up, know this. That was never about your weakness. This lesson isn't about building walls. It's about learning where your gates should be. Lesson 3. Guard your dreams. While they're still fragile when you're running on fumes, physically, emotionally, even spiritually, your dreams often become your last lifeline. They're what keep you going when everything else feels heavy. A quiet vision of something better, something freer. But here's something we don't talk about enough. Your dreams, especially the new or fragile ones, don't belong in just anyone's hands. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, you might feel the urge to cling to hope, to share that little spark of something you're building inside. Maybe it's a plan to leave a toxic job, or start writing again, or just make it through the week with your dignity intact. But here's the danger. If you speak that fragile hope too soon, to the wrong person, it can die before it ever had the chance to grow. The Stoics weren't dreamers in the modern sense, but they were deeply protective of inner clarity. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That applies here. You don't have to make your vision understandable to everyone. You don't need external validation for something that lives in your soul. When you're already tired, even one dismissive comment can feel like a wrecking ball. And that's not weakness. That's human. Your energy is precious right now. And your dreams. You are not broken for dreaming quietly. You are wise for protecting what little hope you have left. And when you're ready, truly ready, your dream will speak for itself. Until then, it's okay to let it live softly inside you, unshared, but safe. Lesson 4. You don't owe everyone an explanation. When you're walking through life tired, not just from work or stress, but from pretending you're okay, everything feels heavier. Even conversations, especially the ones where you feel like you have to justify your choices, your silence, your boundaries, your healing. It's exhausting to keep explaining yourself. Why you didn't text back. Why you left the party early. Why you've changed. Why you're quieter now. But here's something no one tells you enough. You don't owe everyone an explanation. There's a quiet dignity in simply living your truth without handing out a press release every time you make a decision for your peace. The Stoics believed in living with intention, not justification. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, don't explain your values. Embody them. Let your life speak for itself. When you're already tired from carrying emotional weight alone, constantly defending your healing only adds to the load. You're not broken for pulling away. You're not rude for needing space. You're not selfish for choosing your mental health over people-pleasing. Let the noise pass you by. Not with anger, not with arrogance, just with the calm confidence of someone who's finally realized explaining yourself to people who aren't trying to understand is a slow kind of self-abandonment. And you've given too much of yourself for that already. Lesson 5. Stop measuring your low moments against someone else's high ones. When you're already struggling just to hold yourself together, one of the quickest ways to fall deeper into exhaustion is by looking sideways at everyone else. Their smiling photos, They're exciting news. They're perfectly filtered lives that seem so together, while yours feels like it's unraveling in silence. But here's the truth that often gets buried beneath the noise. You're not falling behind. You're just healing in a world that doesn't always show its mess. Comparison is quiet poison. And when you're tired from pretending to be fine, it's even easier to believe that you're the only one who feels lost, that everyone else has some secret map, and you're the only one wandering. But what you're seeing, online, in conversation, even across the table, is rarely the full truth. You're comparing your unfiltered reality to someone else's highlight reel, and that will always make you feel less than. The Stoics taught that peace comes from within, not from applause, not from status, not from validation. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid," meaning let go of the performance. Stop trying to keep up. Your timeline is not broken just because it doesn't match theirs. You're not broken, you're just exhausted from carrying your truth in a world obsessed with appearances. And your journey, though different, is still sacred. Let it unfold at its own pace. Lesson 5. Stop measuring your low moments against someone else's high ones. When you're already struggling just to hold yourself together, one of the quickest ways to fall deeper into exhaustion is by looking sideways at everyone else. Their smiling photos, their exciting news, their perfectly filtered lives that seem so together while yours feels like it's unraveling in silence. But here's the truth that often gets buried beneath the noise. You're not falling behind. You're just healing in a world that doesn't always show its mess. Comparison is quiet poison. And when you're tired from pretending to be fine, it's even easier to believe that you're the only one who feels lost, that everyone else has some secret map, and you're the only one wandering. You're not broken, you're just exhausted from carrying your truth in a world obsessed with appearances. And your journey, though different, is still sacred. Let it unfold at its own pace. Lesson 6. Stop shrinking yourself. Just to keep the peace. There's a kind of tired that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from being too little of yourself for too long. When you're already stretched thin from pretending to be fine, you start making quiet trades. You swallow your opinions to avoid conflict. You say, "I'm good," when you're anything but. You say yes when your soul is screaming no. Why? Because somewhere along the way, you learned that it's safer to please than to be real. That asking for what you need might make people uncomfortable. And so you make yourself small to protect their comfort. But here's the truth. Every time you shrink to keep the peace, you make war inside yourself. And no one sees that war but you. It shows up as burnout, as emotional fatigue, as that deep sense of loneliness even in a room full of people. Stoic wisdom reminds us that living in alignment with our values, even when it's hard, is the only real path to peace. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." So what about your self-respect? What about your voice? You're not broken for needing rest, for needing space, for needing more depth, more understanding, more honesty. You are not asking too much. You're asking too quietly. You don't have to light yourself on fire to keep others warm. You don't have to say yes when your body is begging for pause. And you certainly don't have to play the role of easygoing just to be liked. You are allowed to take up space. You're not broken. You're just exhausted from silencing your needs in exchange for temporary peace. Real peace starts when you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of keeping others comfortable. Lesson 7. Stop rushing your healing just to look like you're okay. There's this quiet pressure in the world. Maybe you felt it. The pressure to bounce back fast, to heal quickly, to smile again before you're ready, to act like the storm has passed just because everyone else has moved on. And so exhausted and raw, you start pretending. Not because you're healed, but because you're tired of explaining that you're not. But healing isn't a performance. It's not a race or a checklist. And here's the truth that might take a lifetime to learn. You don't owe anyone the appearance of being okay before you actually are. When you're already drained from carrying your pain in silence, trying to rush your healing only adds another layer of pressure. You end up playing pretend, smiling with your mouth but not your eyes, showing up physically while you're emotionally miles away. And you wonder why you still feel broken. But you're not broken. You're just still in process. And that's not failure. That's what healing is. You're not behind. You're not weak. And you're certainly not broken. You're just exhausted from trying to look like you're fine, when what you really need is rest, space, and time. Let yourself heal at your own pace. Quietly, fully, truly. Lesson 8. Don't apologize for how you survived. There are parts of you, habits, reactions, defenses, that maybe you've been taught to feel ashamed of. The way you shut down when things get too loud. The way you flinch when someone raises their voice. The way you isolate when you're hurting, or joke too much when you're scared. Maybe you've looked at those parts and thought, what's wrong with me? But here's the truth you may have never been told. Nothing is wrong with you. Those parts of you aren't flaws. They're survival. They're the ways your mind and body protected you when things got too hard. And while they might not serve you forever, they saved you once. And you don't have to apologize for that. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, it's easy to start criticizing yourself for the way you cope. You compare your quiet struggles to someone else's polished front and wonder why you can't just be normal. But normal is a myth. Survival is messy. It doesn't always look graceful. It looks like doing what you have to do to make it through. That isn't weakness. That's wisdom in motion. The Stoics spoke often of endurance, not flashy strength, but the quiet kind. Epictetus, who endured slavery and hardship, once said, "Difficulties show a person's character. You're not broken, you're just tired. Tired from surviving in silence. Give yourself credit, not shame. You made it this far, and that matters more than you know." Lesson 9. You don't have to pretend to be strong all the time. Somewhere along the way, you might have started believing that being strong means being silent, that if you ask for help, you're weak, that if you fall apart, you've failed, so you push through, keep your chin up, and carry on, even when everything inside you is quietly unraveling. But let me say something plainly. Pretending to be strong isn't the same as being strong. Real strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means knowing when you need support and having the courage to reach for it. When you're exhausted, not just tired but soul-weary, pretending becomes its own kind of burden. You end up performing a version of yourself that's calm, composed, fine, all while your real self waits in the background, aching to be seen. That kind of emotional labor wears you down, and eventually, the mask you wear to appear strong becomes heavier than the truth you're hiding underneath it. There is no shame in saying, "I can't do this alone." There is no weakness in leaning. You're not broken because you need rest, reassurance, or someone to remind you that you don't always have to carry everything by yourself. You've been strong for so long. Maybe now is the time to be real instead. You're not broken, you're just exhausted from being everyone's anchor, when what you really needed was a place to anchor yourself. Let someone show up for you. You deserve that, too. Lesson 10. Don't hide your softness. Just to survive, the world has a way of convincing us that softness is dangerous, that to make it through life we need to toughen up, build walls, speak louder, move faster, feel less. And when you've been hurt, when you've spent months or years pretending to be fine just to function, it becomes easier to armor up, to shut down the gentle parts of you that once felt safe to share. But here's what's quietly true, even if no one has said it lately. Your softness is not the problem. The world just didn't know how to hold it. Maybe you felt like your sensitivity is something to apologize for, like your empathy drains you, like your heart, which feels everything so deeply, has become too much to carry. But you're not broken for feeling the weight of things. You're not weak because you cry at quiet moments, or because beauty stops you in your tracks, or because someone's pain becomes your own. That's not failure. It's your humanness showing. And in a world that often feels cold and fast and disconnected, that softness is a kind of rebellion, a kind of wisdom. You're not broken. You're just exhausted from hiding the most beautiful parts of yourself in a world that doesn't always understand them. But your tenderness is not a flaw. It's the doorway to connection, depth, and real strength. Don't let the world take that from you. Lesson 11. Don't dismiss the small wins. They matter more than you think. When you're barely holding it together, getting out of bed can feel like climbing a mountain. Answering a message, brushing your teeth, drinking water. These tiny, everyday actions can feel impossibly hard when you're emotionally worn out. And yet we rarely celebrate them. Why? Because we've been taught to only applaud the big things, the promotions, the achievements, the highlight moments. But here's something you need to remember. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, the smallest steps forward are still steps forward. They count more than you think. You're not broken because your victories look different right now. You're healing, you're moving, even if it's slowly, even if no one else sees it. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Sometimes daring looks like simply trying, simply showing up, however imperfectly. That's courage. When you ignore your small wins, you teach yourself that progress only matters if it's impressive. But the truth is, healing lives in the quiet moments, in the decision to keep going, in the effort it takes just to try again. So give yourself credit. Every small win is a whisper that says, you're still here. You're still trying. And that's everything. Lesson 12. Don't silence your truth, just because it makes others uncomfortable. There's a certain kind of loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from being unheard. From sitting in a room full of people and realizing you can't speak your truth without shifting the mood. From knowing that if you say how you really feel, overwhelmed, anxious, broken open, the people around you might flinch, minimize it, or change the subject. The Stoics valued truth, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that stands. Epictetus said, Seek not the good in external things. Seek it in yourselves. That includes your truth, your lived experience, your quiet pain, your deep questions. You don't have to scream it from rooftops, but you don't have to bury it either. And yes, sometimes your truth will make others uncomfortable, especially if they're still pretending to be fine while you've stopped. But you're not responsible for managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own healing. You're not broken. You're just exhausted from censoring your soul to keep the peace. Speak, even if your voice shakes. You don't need to be loud. You just need to be real. Lesson 13. Stop blaming yourself for how long it's taking to feel okay. There's a moment, maybe you've felt it, when you look around and think, why am I not better yet? You start measuring your healing like a deadline you've already missed. Maybe it's been months since the loss, the heartbreak, the burnout. Maybe the people around you seem to have moved on, smiling like nothing ever cracked them open. And there you are, still trying to catch your breath, still waking up with that weight on your chest. And the most painful thought starts to creep in. Maybe this is my fault. Maybe I'm too much, too slow, too broken. But here's what's true, even if no one else says it out loud. Healing has no finish line, and how long it takes is not a measure of your worth. The Stoics weren't interested in timelines. They were interested in resilience, the quiet kind that shows up again and again, no matter how long the storm lasts. Marcus Aurelius, who knew deep personal grief and responsibility, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Strength, not speed. Presence, not pressure. You're not broken because it's taking time. You are human. You're unlearning, releasing, rebuilding. And healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like sitting in the mess without running from it. That's courage. That's growth. Please don't punish yourself for not being better yet. You're not a project. You're a person, a tender, complex, strong, exhausted soul who's still finding their way. And that's okay. You're not broken. You're just tired from thinking you should be further along. But there's no map for healing. There's only honesty, patience, and grace. Give yourself all three. Lesson 14. Don't mistake numbness for healing. Sometimes the pain gets so heavy that your mind does the only thing it knows how to do to protect you. It shuts down. Not in a dramatic way, but in small, slow ways. You stop feeling things fully. Good things don't reach you the way they used to. Music doesn't hit the same. Hugs feel distant. Laughter feels forced. And eventually, you start thinking, maybe this is healing. Because at least it doesn't hurt as much anymore. At least the tears have stopped. But here's the truth you might need to hear gently. Numbness isn't healing. It's a pause, a survival response, a quiet signal from your soul that says, I'm not ready to feel this yet. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. The mind protects what the heart isn't ready to face. But staying numb too long comes with a cost. You lose not only the pain, but the joy, the connection, the depth. And over time, you might begin to wonder why everything feels dull, why life feels muted. You're not broken. You're just stuck in survival mode. You're not broken. You're just exhausted from holding yourself together without really being here. And you deserve to feel more than nothing. You deserve to feel fully alive again. Lesson 15. Not feeling joy doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you're healing. There's a guilt that settles in when you look at your life, maybe your home, your relationships, your health, and think, I should feel happier than this. You've got things to be thankful for. You know that. Maybe you've even heard it from others. You have so much going for you. Why aren't you smiling more? And so you start wondering what's wrong with you. Why can't you feel joy the way you used to? Why does everything feel muted, even when nothing is wrong? But here's the truth you may need to hear gently. Not feeling joy doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you human. It makes you someone who is still healing. Gratitude and joy are not the same. You can know you're blessed and still feel emotionally numb. You can appreciate the people in your life and still feel like something inside is off. This isn't selfishness. This isn't failure. This is what happens when you've spent too long pretending to be okay. You go into emotional survival mode. Your nervous system slows you down to protect you, even from joy, because joy is still feeling, and feeling is still vulnerable. The Stoics believed in gratitude, but they never said it should override reality. Seneca once wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage, and when you're healing, just waking up and facing the day is courage. Don't shame yourself for not being thrilled by every moment. Let the joy come back in its own time, quietly, naturally. You're not broken, you're just tired from forcing yourself to feel what you're not ready to feel yet. And that's okay. Healing isn't about being happy all the time. It's about being honest with where you are and trusting that joy will return when you're ready to hold it again." Lesson 16. Needing help doesn't make you a burden. It makes you human. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that needing help is a weakness, that asking for support means you're failing, that independence is strength, and vulnerability is something to hide. So we try to handle it all, the pain, the pressure, the grief, the burnout, by ourselves. We smile through the heaviness. We show up, say I'm fine, and keep it moving. But inside, we're barely holding it together. And the worst part? We start believing that if we let someone see the truth, we'll become a burden. But hear this gently. Needing help does not make you broken. It makes you human. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, the idea of leaning on someone can feel terrifying. Not because you don't want help, but because you're afraid they'll see the mess behind the mask. You're scared they'll pull away, or worse, that they'll see you as too much. But the truth is, we were never meant to carry everything alone. Even the Stoics, often misunderstood as Stoic in the modern emotionless sense, believed deeply in community, in shared wisdom, in being supported by something greater than yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." We are connected. We need each other. You're not a burden. You're a person with needs, real ones. And you're not broken for having them. You're just exhausted from convincing yourself you should be able to do this alone. Let someone help you carry the weight. You don't have to earn it. You only have to ask. Lesson 17. Just because you're functioning doesn't mean you're fine. You show up, you work, you answer texts, you laugh at the right times. To everyone else, you seem okay, maybe even great. You're holding it all together. But what no one sees is the heaviness under the surface, the effort it takes just to be on. It's easy to assume that if you're functioning, you must be fine. But here's the truth. Functioning is not healing. Coping is not thriving. Surviving is not the same as living. When you're emotionally worn down, you can go into autopilot. You do what needs to be done, but nothing really feels done. You meet deadlines, show up for people, make the calls. But you feel disconnected from your own life. And the worst part? Because you're still showing up, people stop checking in. They assume you're okay, so you stay quiet. But silence doesn't mean healing. Sometimes it just means no one noticed you were hurting. The Stoics spoke often of presence, not pretending. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you paint over your pain too often, your soul fades into survival mode. You forget how to feel fully, to breathe deeply, to just be. You're not broken for going numb. You're not weak for feeling unseen. You're just exhausted from being okay for everyone else while quietly falling apart inside. And it's okay to stop performing, to admit you're not fine, even if everything on the outside looks like you should be. Lesson 18. Rest is not laziness. It's repair. Somewhere in your mind, you might carry the belief that rest needs to be earned, that unless you're working, achieving, producing, you're wasting time. And so you keep going, even when your body aches and your mind is screaming for pause. You push through the fog, drink more coffee, silence the fatigue with to-do lists. But here's what you must remember. Rest is not laziness. It's repair. It's medicine for the parts of you that are worn thin from pretending to be fine. When you've been carrying stress, pain, anxiety, or grief for too long, your nervous system doesn't need more pressure. It needs gentleness. It needs space. And often the only way to heal what's breaking inside is to step back, unplug, and simply be still. Not to avoid your life, but to return to it whole. The Stoics understood the value of retreat. Seneca often wrote about the importance of stepping away from noise to restore clarity. "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," he said. And when your imagination is constantly wrapped in worry, your soul never truly rests, even when your body stops moving. Rest isn't selfish, it's sacred. And you don't need to earn it with exhaustion or pain. You don't need to explain it to anyone who doesn't understand. Choosing to rest is choosing to believe you are worth caring for, even when you're not operating at full speed. You're not broken for needing a break. You're not lazy for slowing down. You're just exhausted from pretending you can handle everything without stopping. Give yourself permission to pause, breathe, sleep, cry. Sit in silence, not as weakness, but as a kind of quiet strength, a way of saying, I matter, even when I'm not producing. Lesson 19. Your struggles don't make you hard to love. When you've been fighting battles inside that no one sees, it's easy to start believing the lie that your struggles make you too complicated, that your anxiety, your sadness, your quiet shutdowns or emotional waves make you a burden to be with. So you shrink. You tone yourself down. You apologize for needing reassurance. You hide the days when your energy disappears without warning. All because somewhere deep down, you've convinced yourself, maybe I'm just too much. But here's what's true. Your struggles don't make you hard to love. They just make you human. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, love can feel like pressure, like one more thing you have to perform well. But real love, the kind that holds, that listens, that stays, doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't require you to always be cheerful, confident, or composed. It meets you where you are. It sees the mess and chooses to stay anyway. The Stoics believed in acceptance, not only of the world but of the self. Epictetus said, "You are a little soul carrying around a corpse." A raw but humbling reminder. We are all fragile, complicated, imperfect, and none of us are meant to carry our pain alone or believe that we're unworthy because of it. You're not broken because you struggle. You are not too much because you feel deeply. You're just tired. Tired from holding yourself back to be more lovable. When the truth is, you already are. Even now. Especially now. Lesson 21. Just because you're still healing doesn't mean you're not making progress. It's easy to measure progress in obvious ways. The goals achieved, the milestones hit, the days you don't cry. But healing doesn't always leave a trail you can point to. Sometimes progress looks like simply not giving up. Like getting through a day that would have broken you a year ago. Like saying no when people expect you to say yes. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, you tend to overlook your quiet victories. You think, I should be further by now. Or, I thought I already worked through this. And suddenly, a setback feels like failure, even though it's just part of the process. The Stoics didn't ask us to be perfect. They asked us to stay present, to engage with life, even when it's messy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't let your reflection on the whole sweep of life crush you. And right now, what's in front of you might just be one simple truth. You're doing better than you think. You're not broken for still hurting. You're not failing because you're still figuring it out. You're healing, slowly, quietly, beautifully, and every step counts, even the ones that don't look impressive. Lesson 20, you deserve the same compassion. You give so freely to others. You're the one who checks in, the one who says, take your time, and you don't have to explain. You forgive quickly, listen deeply, and love hard, even when others don't always return it. But when it comes to yourself, you're harsh. You rush your own healing. You criticize your pain. You hold yourself to impossible standards. Then wonder why you always feel like you're falling short. But here's something that might change everything. You deserve the same compassion you give to others, without condition, without delay. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, your inner voice often turns cruel. It tells you to toughen up, to move on already, to stop being so sensitive. But would you ever speak to someone you love that way? Would you rush their grief, shame their struggle? Of course not. So why have you learned to treat yourself like the exception? The Stoics were not cold. They were disciplined, yes, but they also valued gentleness toward the self. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But even he knew that strictness was about integrity, not cruelty. The goal was always inner peace, and you can't reach peace by punishing yourself into it. You're not broken, you're just exhausted. And maybe it's time you started being a little kinder to the one person who's been with you through it all. You. Lesson 22. Your emotions aren't inconvenient. They're information somewhere along the way. You were probably taught to hide your feelings, not with cruelty, but with subtle messages. Don't overreact. You're too emotional. Don't make a scene. And so you learned to suppress, to swallow your anger, to quiet your sadness, to smile through the ache. But over time, that silence becomes heavy, and one day you start wondering why you feel numb, or worse, why you explode over something small. Here's why. Your emotions were never the problem. The silence around them was. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, your emotions don't disappear. They just go underground. And when we ignore them long enough, they start showing up in other ways. Anxiety, burnout, tension in your body. But emotions aren't bad. They're not weak. They're data. They're signs from your soul that something needs attention. The Stoics believed in emotional clarity, not suppression. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." That includes facing what lives inside of you, not to drown in it, but to understand it. To meet your anger and ask what boundary was crossed. To sit with your sadness and ask what was lost. To feel your joy fully and not apologize for it. Lesson 23. The effort no one sees still counts. There are days when you barely keep it together, not in some dramatic, outwardly visible way, but in all the small, silent ways that no one notices. Getting out of bed when you wanted to disappear, responding to that one message when every part of you felt like retreating, eating something nourishing when you had no appetite, holding back tears in a crowded room. And at the end of the day, you wonder why you're so tired, like you haven't done anything. But here's what's real. The effort no one sees still counts. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, it takes everything to function. And because our culture only applauds visible achievement, it's easy to feel like you're failing. But surviving quietly is still surviving. Healing slowly is still healing. And showing up for yourself in invisible ways is one of the bravest things you'll ever do. The Stoics taught us not to be moved by applause or external praise. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." You don't need anyone else to notice for it to matter. The strength you show when no one is watching. That's the purest kind. You're not broken because your wins don't look flashy. You're just tired, because carrying emotional weight behind a calm face is exhausting. Please give yourself credit for every quiet battle you've fought and every step you've taken without recognition. Lesson 24. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. You've been conditioned to think that putting yourself first is selfish, that saying no means you don't care, that walking away from toxic spaces or protecting your peace makes you difficult, cold, or ungrateful. So you stay longer than you should. You give more than you have. You say, "I'm fine," when your soul is screaming for rest. But here's the truth. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred. When you're exhausted from pretending to be fine, choosing yourself might be the most radical act of self-respect you can offer. It's not about abandoning people. It's about not abandoning yourself anymore. It's about no longer begging for space to breathe. It's about listening to your body, your boundaries, your needs, and actually responding with care. The Stoics weren't martyrs. They believed in inner balance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul." But how can you reach that peace if you never prioritize it? How can you return to yourself if you're always pouring into others while leaving yourself empty? You're not broken because you want more rest, more peace, more honesty. You're just worn down from believing that your needs always have to come last. But here's your quiet permission slip. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to disappoint people who benefited from your silence. It's okay to choose you. Choosing yourself isn't a betrayal. It's a reunion with your worth, with your voice, with the part of you that's been waiting to be seen. If you've made it this far, I hope you can feel it. Not just the words, but the truth behind them. The slow unraveling of shame, the soft return of self-compassion, the quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, you were never broken at all. You were just tired, not lazy, not weak, not lost. These lessons weren't meant to fix you. They weren't about perfection or productivity or becoming some upgraded version of yourself. They were here to remind you You're already enough, even in the messy middle, even in the days when healing feels like standing still. You've been strong for so long. But strength isn't always about holding it all together. Sometimes it's about letting go, letting yourself rest, letting yourself feel. The Stoics knew life would test us. They knew pain was part of the path. But they also believed that peace wasn't found in avoiding struggle. It was found in choosing presence. So here's your final reminder. You are not too much. You are not too slow. You are not behind. You are not broken. If this journey spoke to something deep in you, if you saw yourself in even one of these lessons, I invite you to stay. Subscribe. Share this with someone who's pretending to be fine, but needs to hear that they're not alone. You don't have to walk through this quietly anymore. We're right here with you. Always.